You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Dan Zarzana.
Ho, ho, ho.
I'm Dan Zarzana.
Ho, ho, ho.
Zarzana.
And I'm Jeff Garvin.
Let the journey begin.
Ho, ho, ho.
Welcome to the show. Dan and I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a wonderful holiday season spent however and with whomever you want. If you are in a charitable mood, please consider supporting the Hero's Journey podcast. Review us on iTunes, follow us on Twitter, or join our Patreon community to earn exclusive content.
This is episode 14, A Christmas Story.
Ho, ho.
Oh my God. A Christmas Story was released in 1983 by MGM. It was directed by Bob Clark, who, I didn't know this, directed Porky's. Right. How do you go from Porky's to A Christmas Story? That's quite a quite a leap. It was written by Gene Shepard based on his novel In God We Trust. All Others Pay Cash. I've never read that, but I always mean to read it every time I think about it. But I never read it.
And you'd think this podcast would have inspired both of us to read that novel, and yet
I
here
forgot
we are.
it was a novel until
until
I watched the movie.
My memory was that it was a short story because In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash is a total short story title, and it didn't occur to me.
It does sound like that, yeah.
Anyway,
Shepard was also the narrator of the film, and he had an on-screen cameo as the man who tells Ralphie to get to the end of the line at the Santa Claus display in the department store.
Hey, kid, just where do you think you're going?
Going up to see Santa.
The line ends here. It begins there.
Bob Clark also had a cameo as the neighbor, Swede, who joins the old man on the sidewalk to marvel at his major award.
Hell yeah, you said you won it. It looks like a table lamp.
I can't believe that's Bob Clark. That's amazing.
That was the director.
The film starred Peter Billingsley as Ralphie, Ian Petrella as Randy, Melinda Dillon as Mom, and Darren McGavin as the old man. First
tidbit is that Jack Nicholson was in consideration to play the old man.
Wow.
And it would have been a completely different movie. And MGM didn't want to pay his fee, though, so the role went to Darren McGavin, but I can't imagine anyone else in the role as the old man.
What an
He's
iconic
amazingly great.
Yeah, he's perfect. I mean, this is what he's remembered for and will be remembered for eternally.
He does the great angry dad thing, but he's also such a heartwarming dad character as well. Like, he wants his family to have a great Christmas.
Totally agree. He's as joyful as he is angry.
Right. Which is kind of how I think maybe a lot of us remember our fathers.
Yeah.
I wonder. Actually, I'm projecting my own memories on the audience, but for me personally, that's kind of how I remember my dad. Like, I kind of feared him, but just because he was dad. Like, I didn't want to dad.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
But I also knew that he was a great father and he loved me and sacrificed everything for the family, which is what the old man does here.
I love that we see Dad through the lens of a 9-year-old's memory. Like all of the nonsense swear words that he comes up with.
Oh my God. Hostigel Pfeiffer!
First of all, did Darren McGavin, did he improvise those? Because they're amazing.
They're great, yeah.
I didn't find the screenplay, but I wonder if they're phonetically rendered in the screenplay, because those are incredible.
I don't know the answer to that, but I did read that Peter Billingsley has stated that when he is beating up Scut Farkus, his nonsense was scripted word for word.
Wow. Okay. One of the things we're going to do now that we've got a Patreon going on is we're going to do extra tidbits. So if you'd like to hear more trivia and tidbits about the movie, check out patreon.com/heroesjourney, and there will be bonus content for this episode. So one final thing, which is, had Jack Nicholson taken this role, it would have been like A Shining Christmas. Like psycho dad goes insane on the furnace.
Oh my
and
gosh.
The child lives in fear of him. All right.
Released in theaters November 18th, 1983, the film was number 1 at the box office Thanksgiving weekend. The film had a $3.3 million budget and grossed $12.8 million during its original release. And then there was a 2010 re-release that pushed its box office up a bit more to 20.6 is what IMDb Pro says.
This is this film's 35th anniversary.
Yeah.
35th
wow.
anniversary of that film, almost to the day when we're recording this. We're recording this about a week after.
Huh. I didn't even pick up on that when I was looking at those numbers.
Happy anniversary, A Christmas Story.
Yeah, seriously. God, can you imagine in just 15 years, it's going to be the 50th anniversary of this movie, and we'll probably still be watching it on Christmas morning. That's what my wife and I do. That's our Christmas tradition.
I can't imagine another piece of Christmas nostalgia from the 80s that has survived. Maybe Last Christmas, that horrible, horrible Wham song that I cannot bear listening to every year. But the only other thing that's lasted, everything that's lasted from Christmas is from the 40s and 50s and 60s.
What about Charlie Brown Christmas?
I guess that's
when
true.
Was that? Was that the 80s?
No, that had
was
to
70s,
be 80s.
wasn't it?
Yeah, 70s. I don't know.
I don't know.
Without further ado.
So next episode, a Charlie Brown Christmas.
Yeah, nice.
We could do a little mini episode on that.
A nice late January present for you. Without further ado, we'll dive into Act 1. Act 1, The Ordinary World, World of Common Day. We see our main character in his status quo normal life. It's Christmas time in the 1940s, and 9-year-old Ralphie Parker lives on Cleveland Street in an anonymous town in northern Indiana.
Hammond. It's Hammond. He says it.
Oh, he does?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Hammond, Indiana.
When they're downtown, he says something about, we're talking about the Higbee's corner store and all that, and he mentions something about.
I did not know that. Is it a real town? I've never heard of Hammond, Indiana. I'm semi-familiar with northern Indiana. I've never heard of that town.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to Google that for the tidbits.
Hey Siri, is Hammond, Indiana a real town?
Bing! Join Patreon to find out. Okay, so it's Christmas time in the 1940s, and 9-year-old Ralphie Parker lives on Cleveland Street in Hammond, Indiana. Ralphie desperately wants a Red Ryder 200-shot range model air rifle for Christmas. That's all I got. I know what you're going to say.
Okay.
You're going to say I jumped the gun on the call to adventure.
Yeah, him wanting.
Ladies and gentlemen, the divergence begins.
You
in
did
World
that
of
on
Common
purpose,
Day.
just because you wanted to fight. You're so upset we didn't fight so much over Braveheart that you wanted to start trouble here on A Christmas Story.
In all fairness, no.
Of all the movies.
I actually believe that's World of Common Day, and we can discuss why, but why don't you show me your call to adventure, and I'll show you mine.
All right, well, the call to adventure is the segment of the story where the hero is presented with a challenge, which renders him... Oh, I know what you're going to say. Well, see, but okay. Which renders him unable
I love it when you argue
to continue
on my behalf
living
without
in
even
the
me saying...
comfort of the ordinary world. So I say the call to adventure is standing outside Higbee's corner window with the Christmas display. All the kids have their noses pressed to the glass. And Ralphie sees the Red Ryder carbine action 200-shot range model air rifle. And now he knows that he has to figure out how to get his parents to get him one for Christmas.
So
without making it obvious is the first step.
I agree that could be interpreted as the call to adventure, and that was my first instinct.
Here we go.
But upon further reflection, and while I was carefully watching this for the first time at 2 a.m. this morning to prepare for this podcast, when he sees it, he says...
I'm glad you're putting so much effort into it.
He says...
2 a.m.?
No, not 2 a.m.
Okay.
He says something to the effect of, and there it was.
Yeah.
So obviously we're a narrator looking back from adult on the childhood. But as I was watching it, to me, it didn't seem like this was the first time he had ever seen the gun. So I actually... From a mythical hero's journey standpoint, I actually see a different call to adventure, which is when Ms. Shields, his teacher, his 4th grade teacher at Warren G. Harding School, invites him to write a theme, What I Want for Christmas.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a story told in flashback by a narrator.
Right.
Who is the adult version of Ralphie.
Yeah.
And he's narrating Ralphie standing at that window and seeing the Red Ryder. Okay, I will. What's the word? Not acquiesce. We're doing this again. We had concede.
Yeah, there we go.
And that was the same word that I had trouble.
We
had trouble thinking of that. I will concede that it is possibly not the first time that Ralphie has seen the BB gun.
Yeah.
Especially because later he says, well, Flick's getting one. So obviously he knows about it already.
Right.
I think. But it is presented to the audience that this is a thing that Ralphie wants. It's the only thing that he wants. And this is our introduction to it.
Totally. I totally recognize that.
That's the call to adventure. Him seeing this thing, and now that's his goal for the rest of the film.
Well, as we've said many times before, these are motifs, story functions that exist in different places in the story.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's one call to adventure. I don't know that you can say there's only one invitation for Ralphie to go on this adventure. I agree. Him seeing the gun in the window is an initiating event that creates the next step in the adventure. But for me, the official invitation for Ralphie to begin scheming to how to get this gun is the invitation to write the theme. So
I completely disagree because he has already made attempts with his parents, or actually with his mother. He actually never asks Old Man for the BB gun, but he mentions it to his mom at the breakfast table, and he puts the ad in her magazine and puts it on her bed. Like, he's already scheming. He's already scheming, and he's already been pushed back. The refusal of the call has already had his mother saying, "No, you can't have that BB gun," is the refusal of the call. The first one.
Get it all out of your system.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
All right.
You're wrong. You are so wrong on this.
Refusal of the call.
I just talked about that. It's when Mom says, "You'll shoot your eye out." We're done.
So
all right. Moving on to crossing the first threshold.
I just want to remind you that I think you are super attached to chronological order. This is a thing This is a thing. You won't read a series of books. You won't do anything unless it begins at the beginning. And I think there are several expressions of the call. I've already conceded that your interpretation is valid. I think you are super attached to...
I will say that this is the first time that you've ever said that my opinion was valid when we disagreed on something.
You should re-listen to our episodes, because that is you just said is invalid.
You've grown a lot, Jeff. I'm very proud of you.
And if you want to see further growth, become a Patreon member, and you can see this month's exclusive video. Okay, refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, our hero refuses to engage in the adventure. Sometimes this energy is expressed from within the hero himself, sometimes from without. And you've already identified it. This classic kitchen scene. Ralphie tries to lay the groundwork for persuading his parents to get him the BB gun.
Meanwhile, I struggled for exactly the right BB gun hint. It had to be firm, but subtle.
Flick says he saw some grizzly bears near Pulaski's candy store.
And the rest of the family just sort of gapes at him. And I think the narrator says they looked at me like I had lobsters coming out of my ears.
Yep.
So then, of course, Mom says,
Ralphie, what would you like for Christmas?
Horrified, I heard myself blurt it out.
I want an official Red Ryder carbine action 200 range ball air rifle.
Ooh.
No. Shoot your eye out.
Oh, no, it was the classic mother BB gun block. You'll shoot your eye out.
which is the greatest refusal of the call from without ever. You'll shoot your eye out. It reverberates through this whole story.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yeah.
Then. How is his mother saying, "What do you want for Christmas?" How is that not the call to adventure?
Yeah, that could be another call. You just validated my point. There are multiple calls to adventure in this movie, and that is definitely one of them.
Okay. I saw the assignment to write the essay. I'm vacillating between it being like the end of tests or the beginning of Approach to the Cave.
Holy crap.
It's like it's in Act 2.
This is going to be a fascinating episode
that's an
of
hour into the movie.
Hero's Journey. All right. Good. Well, we're going to learn all about storytelling in this episode.
All right. Well, maybe we'll fight about this segment too. Meeting with the mentor, where the hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. In Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, he called this segment supernatural aid, the unexpected assistance that comes to one who has undertaken his proper adventure. I thought a lot about this segment. I had a hard time with it because I don't see that Ralphie gets a whole lot of aid mentorship, I think, comes from the old man throughout the film in little moments. The grandest of it being at the very end, I think. And we'll talk about that when we get there. But I feel like Ralphie is kind of on his own. If his whole journey is to obtain a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas, no one's helping him convince anybody to do that.
Sure. Well, I think this is probably the portion of the podcast where we talk about the structure of this story and what it's really about. Because this story is a series of family vignettes for the most part. And so obviously the main plot is Ralphie trying to get this BB gun for Christmas. But that's just an allegory for growing up. And I think we have to take into account it's 1940 and you had to grow up much faster in 1940 than you do now. This was the Depression, end of the Depression. Ralphie is a 10-year-old or 9-year-old in northern Indiana, where you had to do a lot more stuff as a 9-year-old than you have to do now. Part of this story is him growing up, even becoming a man. I mean, getting your first gun is a rite of passage, especially in Indiana. I mean, if you talk to my dad, who grew up in northern Indiana, man, getting your first pellet gun, that's a big deal.
Really?
Yeah. The old man even confirms it at the end of the movie. Oh, I had one when I was 8. Right. So things have changed. Now he's 9. And so anyway, the functions of this story show up sometimes in the family vignettes, not in the main plot of Ralphie trying to get his gun. So I agree that dad is the mentor. And I actually, in watching this for the however manyth time I've seen it in my life, was really trying to find that mentor moment. And I think a lot of these functions, I kept going, well, we're not going to be able to talk about some of the best scenes in the movie if we stick to only the quest for the gun. And so I started to see...
Did you see some that were outside that?
Yeah. So
I struggled with that too.
I saw 2 mentor scenes. One is when Ralphie is writing his theme. He's trying to be his own mentor. He's trying to I'm going to write this thing and it's going to be great. I'm going to describe the gun. I'm going to persuade my teacher how it's going to be. But the other scene that I saw as a mentor scene is the lamp scene.
Okay, explain how that's a mentor scene.
Okay, so we see Dad come home. I won this thing. It's so great. I won it. And then it arrives, and it's not what he expected, but he is thrilled anyway. And then Mom is pushing back on him like, I don't want this thing in my house.
Yeah.
This is not allowed. This goes against family culture. And here's Dad, in a very flawed mentor way, showing Ralph, here's how you deal with opposition. When the feminine encroaches on your willingness to express your manhood through this whatever sexy lamp, he's teaching Ralphie, no, you put it in the front room window. This is how you deal with it. And of course...
Oh my God, I didn't read any of that into it.
And of course, later it blows up in his face. But, Ralphie's watching his dad deal with the furnace. He's watching his dad deal with being a husband and how he engages in the world. And I just thought that scene was very instrumental in showing Ralphie how to deal with this kind of situation, how to keep your joy even when everyone around you is like, no, no, no. Wow. So I thought that was a pretty interesting expression of the mentor.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll buy it. Very interesting.
Thanks. That leads us to crossing the threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world, and this crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. Now, based on prior hints, I think we're going to widely diverge from this point on.
Yes.
I saw this crossing of the threshold when he hands in his theme to Miss Shields and has the fantasy sequence where he gets an A+.
Yeah.
Plus.
Right.
Oh, so this is great fantasy sequence where he hands in his essay and she reads his theme.
As though it is Shakespearean.
Right. And all of a sudden she has an English accent. A compass in the stock and this thing
which tells time.
Poetry. And she runs across the room for the A++.
And the Romeo and Juliet suite is playing.
Yes,
and
exactly right.
It's
So
just this totally romantic, pseudo-romantic scene between Ralphie and his teacher.
Right. So I think that's the second fantasy sequence that we've seen. The first one is when he's imagining having the gun and shooting Black Bart and that whole great thing. But to me, this was really when he is fully engaged in, I have now handed in the paper. I am committed on paper now to this adventure of getting the gun.
Huh. Yeah, okay. I think that Ralphie's crossing the threshold is, and I think I've already mentioned this, is he slips a print ad for the gun into a copy of his mom's magazine.
Wow.
What?
That's like 2 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Wow. Intense.
But this is the beginning of his journey of trying to convince somebody to give him a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas.
All right.
And then the breakfast scene that we've already talked about. But that is where he, flicks grizzly bears, blah, blah, blah. And then he has this fantasy about Black Bart and his gang storming the house, and his parents are hiding under the table.
So
and
good.
And he comes in this like glittery cowboy outfit and defeats the invaders with his BB gun, where he's the hero of the day.
Yeah.
And that, I think, in the same way that you're saying, him turning in this essay and having this fantasy about it being this amazing piece of writing, and his teacher goes crazy about it.
Right.
In the same way that first fantasy that he has about him saving his family with his BB gun is an earlier representation of crossing of the first threshold.
I love it. Who would have thought that this Christmas story would have been one of our most contentious episodes
contentious.
yet? We're going to take a break, and we'll come back with Act 2.
Okay, well, that was a contentious Act 1.
Holy crap, it was.
I have replenished our coffees, and I think we need to take a friend break.
Can we have some brandy in our coffee? Or we'll do that on
reset. I've got actually, I do have brandy. Do you want a little splash of brandy in your coffee?
Or Bailey's or something?
I do have Bailey's as well.
Oh.
Which would you prefer?
I think I'm down with Bailey's. That's more Irish, right? We'll be beginning the drinking segment early. Dan's had a long week at work.
It's Christmas.
And I've had a long week, and it's Christmas.
We're actually recording this Thanksgiving weekend.
You're gonna,
but you'll hear it on Christmas Day.
That's right. You gonna splash some on the?
I'm splashing it.
You gonna have some too?
Mine already has it.
Oh, thank you. Does it really?
Yes.
Oh, Dan got
Bailey's in mine.
You. Oh my God, it's like chocolate milk. So Dan, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you playing?
Well, this last month, Day Job has been attempting to murder me.
Yeah.
I needed a different kind of entertainment this month. I needed something that I could really escape into. So I didn't do a whole lot of reading, except my drives to and from work. I've been listening to the Reckoners series by Brandon Sanderson. It's I think it's YA.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a trilogy about I guess it's near future where a global event has happened, and a population of humanity has developed superpowers.
Sweet.
And these people are called epics.
Sweet.
Use of those powers corrupts the psychology of these individuals, and they're not superheroes. These are definitely villains. And so the main character, David, is I think he's 18-year-old, which I guess maybe that's why it's YA. I don't know.
Interesting.
He is part of a group of resistance fighters called the Reckoners, and they hunt down and eliminate the epics.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I am. The narrator, I can't remember his name. McLeod something.
Connor McLeod?
No. No, it's McLeod something. I'm so sorry that I don't remember his name. But
are there multiple narrators? There can be only one.
Oh my God.
And cut.
And that's the last episode of this podcast.
The podcast. I just wanted to get my accent in there again. It's a Braveheart callback.
So I've listened to the first book, Steelheart, and I'm about halfway through the second one, Firefight. So that's been pretty much my only reading experience to escape as much as possible from the real world lately. I got into playing Fallout 4.
Oh.
And I'm a big fan of the Fallout series from way back.
Yeah, you are.
Fallout 4 came out about 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, almost exactly 2 years ago, December of 2016. And I was so excited for it that I bought it and downloaded it that day, and I just finished it. It's taken 2 years. Now, I don't play all the time.
Right.
But I just love being in that world. And this past month, I just dove in harder than I have ever played a Fallout game.
Oh, wow.
I just disappeared into that game. And then I finally finished it. I'm not entirely embarrassed to admit that I looked at the game clock when I finished it, and I'd spent 131 hours.
Wow.
Over the course of the past 2 years playing this game. 131 hours.
Do you remember what you paid for it?
$60, I think. I think I bought it when it was launched, so it would have been full price.
What a value.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's like 50 cents a minute. Right? No. Hundreds of hours. That's like 50 cents an hour.
That's not the longest I've ever spent playing a game, though.
But wow, I mean,
But-
compared to any other kind of entertainment you can purchase,
Yeah.
that's a hell of a value, man.
yeah.
You know, it's funny. Me thinking that Fallout 1 came out 2 years ago is a great example of how disconnected I feel from the geek culture that helped me survive high school.
That came out when we were in high school.
Yeah, I'm so behind on geek culture that I feel helpless to catch up. Like, for example, as you've been diving into Fallout, I've been diving into Torchlight, which is, 4 or 5 years old? I mean, I don't know. That is not a recent game.
I feel like it's older than that even, but
I mean, part of it's I'm a Mac guy and I don't have the budget or the time to invest in a real gaming system, so I'm stuck with whatever they've finally developed for the Mac platform. And I just feel so disconnected. Like, for example, Critical Role. I did the math. If I listen to 3 episodes a week, I will catch up in the summer of 2020. And 3 episodes of Critical Role is a lot to listen to in a week. That's like 6 to 9 hours of content.
Their episodes are 3 to 6 hours a piece.
So on that front, I did a poll on Twitter and on Instagram.
Oh.
I said, it will take me till summer of 2020 to catch up on Critical Role. Should I skip to the second campaign? Because they've done now a whole second campaign. And on Twitter, they overwhelmingly said no. And on Instagram, they overwhelmingly said yes.
Well, listen to your Twitter followers.
Or I might be flip-flopping. Well, and I'm hearing your voice going, you can't listen out of order. So also,
well, because the first campaign is so good. Those characters are so great.
I've really come to enjoy them and love them. And the people that I didn't like at the beginning are now my favorite characters. And
oh, wow.
It's such a rich storytelling experience, unlike anything I've experienced before. I am hooked.
Yeah, and it helps that they're all actors.
Oh God,
right?
yes.
It's not like our game where I kind of stumble through doing the best I can. These guys are professional actors, so they do accents and they speak in character to each other, and it's so good. And it's a collaborative story. This is definitely not just Matt Mercer, the DM, telling this story.
It's improvisational theater on a scale that I've never seen any other way. Whatever Matthew Mercer's gifts are, he's an incredible voice actor. He's an incredible actor, but he's a writer, man.
Yes.
That guy is a storyteller. The depth of the NPC, the non-player characters he creates, for non-role-playing game people, that you have your characters who are the main characters in the story, who are played by the players in the game.
Yep.
And then the dungeon master or game master creates the world, the story, the conflict, and the non-player characters. So the villains and the threshold guardians and the mentors, those are all creations of the dungeon master. And Matthew Mercer on this show does 100 jillion different voices. He's like the Jim Dale of Dungeons and Dragons,
and he's so consistent with them.
Oh, he's
20 episodes later, they're gonna go back to some store that they
right
were in, and he'll recall that shopkeeper's accent.
And the players are even amazed. The players are amazed, like, how do you do this? Because he'll remember the name of the guy that they met on the crossroads. Anyway, I'll stop going on. But you're bringing up the Fallout also reminded me, like, oh, no, that's what I was going to say. Your obsession with going in order. So my dad was like, oh, you can download audiobooks from your library now. And he's been rereading all the Ian Fleming James Bond novels. And my dad and I have always bonded over James Bond movies. That's our tradition. Oh God, that was unintended. Our tradition during Christmas break is to watch at least 1 or 2 of the Bond movies.
Oh, that's great.
And so he's been listening to the audiobooks, and the narrator's great. So I downloaded, the only one my library had on the audio app was You Only Live Twice, which is my favorite of the James Bond films.
But that's not the first James Bond movie. You're not supposed to do that.
And it's also the most ridiculous. So I got 5 minutes in, and then I realized I can't do this. Dan will kill me.
Oh, come on. You do you.
So I reserved...
Enjoy...
So I reserved Casino Royale, and I'll be picking that up at the library on CD so I can get that right. So
That right.
I have not read, again, for 2 months in a row, I have not finished a single book.
Yeah.
But I have listened to a lot of Critical Role. And then the other thing that is Muse released a new album on November 9th.
Oh, I love Muse.
They are my favorite band.
Oh, yeah?
Currently. Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
they're my favorite living band, like a band that's still making records.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's so little current music that I'm into. I feel like I'm turning into one of those middle-aged guys who, the 90s were met with the time.
Boy.
But I realized that the thing that I have to have is I have to have legit rock. It's got to be guitar, bass, drums, vocal, or some combination thereof. And it's got to have good songwriting. And the 90s really was the nexus of that. Pop songs with a rock instrumentation. And since then, rock has become more and more synth. Like, perfect example is Maroon 5. Their first album was this great rock band playing funky songs. And then their second album was a Justin Timberlake record. I mean, synth and so overproduced. And I still like seeing them live because they're a great band. But like their records, I've lost interest because that doesn't have the sound that I want. And Muse is a band that still has that legit rock instrumentation. But their latest album, Simulation Theory, the songs are incredible, but they're so synthy. So I'm trying to hold on to, I still want to love Muse because it's like they're the apex of modern rock, but I'm just like,
Is this kind of an experimentation on their part that they're doing, or do you feel the band is drifting toward more of an electronic sound now?
They recreate themselves with every record. I think when in 2012, when they dropped The Second Law, they had dubstep influences and dance music influences with rock music in between. And then flash forward a couple albums to Drones, which came out a couple years ago. They went back to rock roots. The big songs on that record are guitar, bass, drum, and that's my favorite Muse record.
Okay.
And then with this album, they almost went to an 80s throwback kind of a theme. Like all the visuals are super 80s video gamey. But there's also a horror aspect to this album.
A what?
A horror aspect. Horror, yeah.
Okay.
Like monsters.
Got it.
And
Horror.
Anyway, so I've been listening to the Muse record and playing Critical Role, or listening to Critical Role and playing Torchlight. That's been my entertainment experience.
All of that is legitimate.
Amen, brother.
Are we friends again?
I love you.
All right.
And the Bailey says help.
Let's go into Act 2. Act 2 begins with the Road of Trials, or as Christopher Vogler called it in his modern adaptation of The Hero with a Thousand Faces, The Writer's Journey, tests allies and enemies. Now in the special world, the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. Now Ralphie's a little kid. I thought maybe his friends like Flick and Schwartz are allies, but not really. They don't aid him in any way in this movie. Right? Nor unless I'm missing something.
I had them pegged as allies, but I see your point.
Yeah, they don't guide him. They don't help him.
But the other function of allies in mythology can be expressing other sides of the hero. And I definitely see them as expressing like Shadow, the weaker, the stronger, the more aggressive sides of Ralphie.
Okay. All right.
But
sure.
you're right. They don't ever really like come up to his, although Randy does. I would call Randy an ally.
His little brother.
Right.
Mom and dad have some ally moments.
Yeah.
As well as mentor moments.
Yeah.
But they're his parents. That's what your parents should be.
Agreed.
The enemies, the yellow-eyed bully Scut Farkas.
It's the best name in film history.
And his little toady Grover Dill.
I aspire to write villain names that good.
Scut Farkas.
Scut Farkas.
The tests, this is always such a fluid, amorphous blob of a section.
I went back to Campbell to look at all the way he delineates the second act.
Yeah.
And because Vogler kind of takes the Road of Trials and calls that Tests, Allies, and Enemies, and he crams the rest of it into Ordeal.
Ordeal, right.
But I think there's parts of what we call like the approach and stuff that really belongs in, quote, Tests, Allies, and Enemies. So I think that's part of the reason why we're having this sort of like train wreck
right
during this section.
Right. Yeah, there's one of the tests I saw is Flick sticking his tongue to the pole
Sure.
scene.
Yeah.
Ralphie is a tertiary participant in this encounter,
Right.
where it's really Flick versus Schwartz on the playground, surrounded by all of their classmates, and they're arguing about whether or not your tongue will stick to a pole,
Right.
a frozen pole.
Yeah.
Remember, this is Indiana, northern Indiana,
Yeah.
in December, so it's snow on the ground, it's cold. It's not like us here in Southern California where it'll be 95 on Christmas Day.
Right. Not really 95, but yeah.
In the past, it has been. Don't argue with me. So this is establishing kind of the rules of the playground and how I love this scene. This is one of the iconic scenes of this film.
You're full of beans and so's your old man. Oh, yeah? Yeah! Says who? Says me. Oh, yeah? Yeah! I double dare you.
The exact exchange and nuance of phrase in this ritual is very important.
Huh, are you kidding? Stick my tongue to that stupid pole, that's dumb. That's 'cause you know it'll stick. You're full of it. Oh, yeah? Yeah! Well, I double dog dare you.
The escalation of the conflict is first you dare, and then you double dare, and then you double dog dare. That whole sequence. Right. So great.
My dad, by the way, has said multiple times when watching this movie during the holidays that is a legit Indiana kid rite of passage. That
What, sticking your tongue to a pole?
every kid has either been Ralphie or Flick in that situation. Like that is one of those scenes where you go, "Yep, I remember that."
And this is a scene, I think, also that establishes that Ralphie's loyalty is very tenuous to his friends. He abandons Flick because the bell rang. He has to get back to class. Mm-hmm. And Flick is stuck to the pole, and Flick is going,
Come back, come back. The bell rang.
Right.
So Ralphie abandons his friend, doesn't run and tell somebody, hey, Flick's out there, like somebody go help him. They just pretend that it never happened.
Yeah. I also saw a little bit of mentor energy there when Flick comes back into the classroom. He doesn't rat out his friends.
Right.
He's
a more loyal friend than Ralphie is.
He teaches Ralphie. So Ralphie's that caught between loyalty and following the rules. At that point, he is more lawful good than he is chaotic good.
Yeah. Another test is the introduction to Scut Farkus. When the kids are walking home from school and Scut Farkus assaults them on the street.
Scut Farkus.
Scut Farkus. What a rotten name. We were trapped. There he stood between us and the alley. Scut Farkus staring out at us with his yellow eyes. He had yellow eyes, so help me God, yellow eyes.
And Ralphie runs away, abandons Flick.
He bails, yeah.
So, again, we see where Ralphie's loyalties lie. And then I saw, well, here's where I kind of vacillate a little bit now, because I wrote down that the essay, What I Want for Christmas, I put that in tests.
We have to pause and do Deal or Ordeal right now, or we're gonna scramble our. We don't have to pause, but we need to. We got to write our cards.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're getting into that territory. So we're gonna take a break real quick and write down our Deal or Ordeal. We'll be back. Okay, thanks for indulging us. We had to write down our predictions. So we were in the middle of
Yeah, I don't remember where we were.
Test Allies and Enemies.
We've talked already about how this movie is a series of vignettes, and therefore we can take some liberties with the order of things. Campbell has a sequence in his hero's journey that takes place in the ordeal in Vogler's interpretation, meeting with the goddess. Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm just twitching with your invoking parts of the ordeal here in Test Allies and Enemies.
Oh, I thought you were having a stroke. I was like, what? Okay.
I do an eye twitch thing when I...
Okay. All right. The reason I'm mentioning it is because I wrote all of this stuff down as tests. But I also see that it could be meeting with the goddess territory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Meeting with the goddess is the hero in some stories being confronted with betrayal or disappointment. And there are 3 sequences that happen back to back to back that are they're downfalls for Ralphie. They're moments of extreme disappointment. One of them is the Little Orphan Annie decoder pin.
Gee, almost there. My fingers flew. My mind was a steel trap. Every pore vibrated. It was almost clear. Yes, 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 yes.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Ovaltine? A crummy commercial? Son of a
I went out to face the world again, wiser.
And this is such a moment of dejection. He just leaves the decoder pin in the bathroom and just walks away so dejected.
My favorite bit of Bob Clark's direction is in this scene.
Yeah.
So he finally lets Randy's pounding at the door. Let me into the bathroom. He walks and opens the toilet lid, and we cut to Ralphie lifting the lid on the pot of the boiling red cabbage.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah,
oh, God.
yeah, it's a pretty good cut.
This is as good a moment as any to insert that I got to meet Peter Billingsley once
Oh, yeah?
at an audition.
Uh-huh. For A Christmas Story.
No.
You were up for Ralphie.
No.
Randy then.
No. We were
Scut Farkas.
No, this was long before I was acting professionally. No, we were both auditioning for the same role, and I don't remember what it was for because I saw Peter Billingsley and totally lost my brain, and I was out of my body, and I don't even remember being in the audition room because I was
How
like,
old were you?
holy crap, that was Peter Billingsley. I was in my early 20s.
Okay. Was he... Because he is now a behind-the-scenes producer kind of a guy now.
Yeah.
So was he doing that? Was he behind the camera in this
No,
case?
he was
Or
auditioning for the
you
same
two
thing
were up
I
for
was.
the same role? Okay.
Yeah. I
Did
remember-
either of you get it?
I don't know. He did. I didn't. I don't know if
Okay.
he did. But I remember seeing his name on the sign-in sheet back in those days. It was a clipboard, and you wrote your name and your social
in my
security
day.
number
What?
on the sheet.
No.
Yep. And I remember at that audition,
PII.
Bodie Elfman and Peter Billingsley were there, and I remember
Wow.
thinking like, "Oh my God, I'm in the big leagues now."
Imposter syndrome.
Because
I don't belong here.
Right. Well, he's only 3 or 4 years older than we are, I want to say, because he would have been 9 or 10 in '83, and we
He was
would have
12.
been. Okay, so yeah, so he's not that much older than we are.
So I could go on, but what do you have for tests?
Very similar.
Do you- okay.
I see.
The flat tire. I put
Yeah.
that as a test. Like, can he have this interaction with his father where he, it's a manhood thing. Like, we're gonna change the flat tire together.
Yeah, to me, all the tests are tests of his worthiness to
Yes.
have this Excalibur, this weapon. Is he mature enough? Is he honest enough? Is he loyal enough?
Yep.
And so the only things you didn't mention are at the very beginning, Randy, he can't put his arms down. There's that scene where
Right.
Mom's wrapping him up in a jacket and he says,
I can't put my arms down.
on the way to school that first day, he falls.
Ralphie falls. He's knocked over.
Randy falls.
I mean, Randy falls.
Yeah,
yes.
he's trying to catch up and he gets knocked over. He's like a turtle on his back. He can't get back up. And he's, Ralphie! And Ralphie leaves his friends to go back and help Randy. And that loyalty pays off later in the story. But that's a loyalty test. He succeeds. The Flick's tongue test is a test of loyalty. He fails. Again, like you said, when Scut Farkas and Grover Dill get Flick and Ralphie bails, that's a failure test. The tire changing scene is a test. Is he worthy enough? Is he mature enough? And
Right.
he's holding the hubcap full of bolts, and his dad, reaches for something. The bolts flip up into the air, almost like BBs, blasting into the air, and that's a failure. He's not worthy. And it's also a test. Is he good enough? Will Santa grant him this boon? And he says the F word. He's not a good boy. He is. And then there was another test of honesty. His mom asks him who taught him the F -- word.
Yeah.
And he says, I'd heard my dad say that word 100 times, but instead of being honest, he throws Schwartz under the bus.
Right.
And then we have that great scene where she goes to call, Mom goes to call Schwartz's mother to tell him, and you hear,
Yeah.
she's beating Schwartz. My mom remembers having moments like that where mothers would call each other to tell on them about what their kids did and where they heard it from.
Wow.
So a piece of mid-century nostalgia.
I wonder if my mom ever did that. Not that I recall, or at least not that she's ever told me.
During that honesty test with Mom is the time when he has that fantasy about, one day his parents will be sorry for making him eat soap, and he has the fantasy that he's blind. And then,
what did we told you we shouldn't have used Life Boy.
it's such a great, that kids absolutely do that. We have these fantasies of.
They're going to be sorry for what they've done to me. Yeah.
So I saw the decoder ring as a test of, is he wise enough? He's smart enough to decode the message, so we know he has the intelligence, but he's not wise enough to anticipate that it's an ad. And of course, when it is, he has that disappointment
that's
moment.
his awakening.
Yep.
Now he's woke.
Yep, he's woke. But until that moment, he wasn't. He had to be, like you said, he had to be, I wanted to say disoriented or dismembered, disillusioned.
Dismembered?
He had to be dismembered.
Disemboweled.
So that brings us to...
So that was all the same stuff that I brought up. Are there any
Yeah.
others that I didn't mention?
No, those are all the ones I
Okay.
had. Which brings us to approach to the inmost cave. The hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of his quest is hidden. I'm very curious to see if you agree with me on these. So I saw two big moments. No. Wow, hold on a second. My notes are...
You brought your Braveheart notes, didn't you?
I did. So I have written down Ralphie turns in his theme to Miss Shields. But So Ralphie turns in his theme to Miss Shields. That's whatever.
You said that was crossing of the
Yeah, that
threshold.
was crossing the
However, you are
threshold.
correct, sir.
Oh, you
that
have
is
this-
the beginning of the approach.
Okay, good. Well, on some level. So then...
See, so you were right. You just didn't know it.
Oh.
You confused yourself.
No. I have... Sorry.
He gets the
Ralphie
the
getting
essay back.
Ralphie getting his theme back.
Right.
And he gets... It's such another great fantasy sequence.
Right.
He gets a C+, and she's written, "You'll shoot your eye out" on the paper, which is, of course, a throwback to Mom saying it at the beginning. And then he has this fantasy of the Wicked Witch.
Oh, no. You'll shoot your eye out? My mother must have gotten to Miss Shields. There could be no other explanation.
You'll shoot your eye out! You'll shoot your eye out!
So massive disappointment. And then this, I'm not sure if you'll agree with me here.
But
Oh.
I just
Oh, yeah.
I just want to highlight that scene. He's excited to be able to write the theme because it's going to be so good that his teacher will back him up
Yes.
and support him in trying to convince his mom to get him a Red Ryder BB gun, so that when he gets the C+ and gets that note written from the teacher, that kills that dream.
Yeah. What a twist.
That's an important point of that scene.
And then I included this in the approach, I think just because I wanted to talk about the scene. I couldn't find anywhere else to put it. Mom breaks the lamp on purpose.
Dad
we don't
is no.
Oh, there's a scene where Melinda Dillon walks out of that kitchen with a rag and a spray bottle, and she has this look on her face like, it's on.
Yes.
She breaks the lamp, and maybe Darren McGavin's greatest moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, this is his crushing disappointment.
Right.
And what does he do? He blames it on the wife, and you used up all the glue. and
then a
so-
line that I say all the time.
Yeah.
Not a finger!
I have no idea why I put that in the approach, except that it is mounting tension toward the worst part, the darkest heart of this movie.
Right. It's another scene in a sequence of downfalls for members of the family, if not Ralphie.
Yeah.
It's establishing bad vibes.
That's what I had for the approach. That's the whole thing.
Okay. I would say that possibly, and only because... Oh, do we need to do Deal or Ordeal now?
Sounds like we do.
Because I think what...
You're about to bleed
Okay,
into
let's all right, let's trade. I'm handing my card to Jeff. Jeff is handing his card to me. This is Deal or Ordeal, where Jeff and I have tried to guess what the other has selected as the ordeal of this film, and we fight about it all the time. So we've decided to make a game out of it.
And we have to highlight at this point that usually what's at stake in this game is that whoever guesses correctly gets to choose the subject of our next episode. But since we introduced our Patreon program, we now allow patrons to decide what the next episode is. So this is the first one where there's nothing at stake. So please tweet at us at Heroes Podcast, email us from the website, join our Patreon and send us a message. What should we put at stake? since now
Oh,
listeners, patrons are deciding what the next episode will be. And if you'd like to vote on the subject of the next episode, please go to patreon.com/heroesjourney and you can sponsor the podcast and gain the right to control the subject of our next episode.
Power.
All right.
So read your...
Dan wrote Jeff's ordeal, meeting Santa. What did I write for you?
You wrote for me. And let me say on mic that during our break, I told you that I think we're going to be in sync on this. I think we're going to select the same thing.
You did.
So you said I was going to select Ralphie's encounter with Santa. Why the blank expression?
Because we both chose
I was
the
right
same
again.
thing,
I
but
was right again.
No, that is not what I chose as the ordeal.
You said... that's what you said.
That's what I guessed you would choose.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Because that's the ordeal. All right.
All right.
So, to continue Approach to the Inmost Cave, so because I had selected the meeting with Santa as the ordeal, I think the parade, the waiting for the parade, and Ralphie's anxiety that the store's going to close and he's going to miss Santa because they're at this stupid parade that's the same parade they've had every year, and why can't we just go? That's what I thought was an element of the approach in addition to the other stuff we've already discussed. So, ordeal, where the hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death. This is a kid's movie, so there's really no death involved. To overcome his worst fear, sometimes actually appearing to die. Meeting with Santa. This is the last chance of convincing somebody that he deserves a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas. His mom has said no, you'll shoot your eye out. His teacher has said no, you'll shoot your eye out. Santa Claus won't turn him down. So he goes and he waits in this long line at Higbee's department store, and he meets Santa Claus, and then he can't remember what he wanted. He's so baffled. He's just dumbfounded. He goes totally blank.
Santa asks him, what do you want?
What do you want for Christmas, little boy?
And then
he's a creepy Santa as well.
Yes.
Not quite Billy Bob Thornton bad Santa bad, but this is like not a good department store Santa. And he completely blanks. And then Santa's like, how about a football? Because Santa's got football. It's 9 o'clock.
Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. So the mean elf chucks him down the slide, and Ralphie stops himself, turns around, climbs up the slide.
No, I want an official Red Ryder carbonized 200 jet range by laser rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Santa Claus is against him, too.
Yeah.
It's over.
Harsh.
It's over. There's no chance that he's going to get a Red Ryder BB gun now for Christmas. Ralphie does not, the hero himself does not risk death, but the thing, his goal, dies right there. That's why this is the ordeal.
I think that is the truest choice looking through the lens of this movie is about Ralphie's quest to get the rifle. So I fully concede to your analysis.
What do you think the ordeal is?
I chose a different section because I was really, when I was watching this movie again, I was like, what's the emotional heart of this movie? What's the toughest part of this coming of age story? And it's when Ralphie has his blowout with Scut Farkus.
I almost wrote that down for you. Damn it.
Scut Farkus accosts Ralphie in like the junkyard empty lot on the way home, and Ralphie's had enough. He's seen Scut Farkus take down Flick. He's seen Scut Farkus take down Schwartz. And Ralphie he's just gotten his theme handed back with a C+. His dream is dead. And Ralphie absolutely loses his he
beats the snot
out of him. And
Scut Farkus is twice his size.
Yeah. And this is Ralphie's first reckoning with violence. How's he going to deal with it? How will it transform him? How will he come through this experience worthy to wield the weapon that he wants so badly? And like Luke does in Empire Strikes Back, he gives into his anger. He is not worthy yet. He is still headed down that dark path. And this is where his ally steps up. Randy picks up his glasses. and saves them from being left behind, because that's something that Ralphie's been in trouble for before.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great ally moment. And it's a payoff for him helping Randy get up at the beginning of the movie. And then I saw two other elements of this. There's an atonement with the father, which is the hero must confront whoever holds the ultimate power in his or her life.
Yes.
While he's punching Scott over and over, he lets out this string of swear words.
You Thornton Notre Dame nipple bang gunk stinking piss. Come on, Ralphie, did you hear what he said? Holy smokes!
And of course, we hear them as garbled nonsense, but we understand that he's really saying horrible things.
Right.
Just like his dad.
Just like his dad does with the furnace.
Yeah, he's become his dad in that moment. And then there's also an apotheosis, which is the hero, recognizing the divine within himself. To me, this is the moment where Ralph has confronted his enemy, the Darth Vader of the story, the force that has kept him staying a child. But he has this moment where he realizes, I have the power to fight back. I'm not the victim of my circumstances. I have control over my destiny. So that's why I chose it as the ordeal.
He also changes it for all of Scut Farkus's victims.
Yep.
Because they're all standing around watching this little tiny Ralphie beat the snot out of Scut Farkus. And Scut Farkus just takes it. He's cowering, and, as Ralphie he could very easily just toss Ralphie off.
Yep.
And Grover Dill, Scut Farkus's little toady, runs up. Like, all of a sudden, all of the bully goes away.
Yeah.
And Grover Dill's like, "Hey, kid, like, quit doing that." And Ralphie just punches him right in the chest.
Yeah.
Knocks him, and Grover runs away.
Yeah.
He abandons Scut Farkus.
This is the moment where Ralphie alters the world.
Right. Yes.
And so while I realized, I sort of agreed that his confrontation with Santa is for sure the apex of his, reckoning with the Christmas gift. To me, this was the emotional heart of the story. This was the dark place that the whole story hinges on, that Ralphie's emotional journey hinges on. And I think it'll be cemented more when I do Reward Seizing the Sword.
Well, that's next. So
I'm so glad you
jump
brought
right
up
on in there, Jeff.
Reward Seizing the Sword. Campbell called this the ultimate boon. Having faced his worst fear, the hero seizes the object of his quest. So Ralphie has beat the snot out of Scut Farkus, and now it's time to face the consequences. Randy goes to get Mom. Mom shows up, hears him saying all these horrible things, and sees him beating the snot, bloodying his face, and she takes him home where he has to face Dad. So she calms him down. He goes to be quiet in his room and lay down. And this is the first time that he doesn't retreat into fantasy. He lies in his bed, tears on his cheeks, waiting to face his dad. And Dad comes home, and Mom says, he goes, "Where are your glasses?" And you can see Ralphie tensing up. He's going to have to face it. And Mom says, "Oh, you left these on the radio again. Mm-hmm. Don't do that." And then he says, "So what happened today?" And she says, "Ralphie had a fight." And again, he's ready for the wrath of Dad.
Right.
And Mom sort of plays it off.
She deflects it.
Boys,
yeah, you know how boys are.
And he says in that narration,
I slowly began to realize I was not about to be destroyed. From then on, things were different between me and my mother.
So now he's transformed his relationship with his mom. He's now worthy to wield the weapon. And so to me, that was the reward. And then lying in bed that night, now knowing that he's worthy, he decides to ask Santa. That's when he sees, Santa. I can do this.
Very good, Jeff. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to give me your reward? Do you disagree? Because it seems like you're...
No, from your perspective,
yeah,
I totally see that. I didn't see all of that escaped my interpretation.
So what did you... I'm just curious, though. What did you have pegged as the reward?
Well, very much like... Well, okay, so the reward... The moment I selected as the reward, I think, is much farther into the movie, or much farther into this hero's journey analysis.
Is it him getting the gun?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because Santa the night before has told him no.
Right.
So he thinks he's not going to get it. Christmas happens. Everyone's opening their presents, and then they're done. And Dad says, "Did you get everything you wanted?" And well, almost. And Dad, in like a mentor moment, says, "Well, that's life."
Right.
And then he says, wait a minute, what's that over there behind the desk? And then it's
Okay, so
Dad-
literally seizing
Dad
the
has-
sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Got it.
I've taken this, I suppose, as literal, because
Yeah.
you keep pointing that out, how I'm looking at this as the entire journey of this film is Ralphie's quest to get a BB gun for Christmas. So from that point of view, that is the ultimate. But anyway.
Yeah, I totally get it. If the BB gun is Excalibur, that is the moment when he pulls the sword from the
And if meeting Santa and having Santa tell him he's going to shoot his eye out, the third person who's
so
told him
brutal.
you'll shoot your eye out, if that's the ordeal, because there isn't from that point, there isn't kind of like Braveheart, there is no tangible reward for William Wallace. But here there isn't one either until he actually gets the BB gun. So, but
Got it.
we'll move on. You're convincing me of your perspective here.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually enjoying how you have thought about this, because when we started arguing in the second segment, I was like, dude, you're going to be totally wrong about
we
this.
argued.
but-
Part of My Ordinary World was your call to. We were arguing from the first
and we're
stage.
arguing again.
We're arguing about which part we were arguing about
All right,
now.
let's have a drink.
Yeah.
I want a drink.
All right.
It's 11 a.m. and I'm gonna pop open
Well,
something.
Hold on. It's 11 a.m. We've already had some Baileys. Let's be clear.
It was a splash.
That's right.
It was a splash of Bailey's. It wasn't even a full ounce.
This is the sound of denial as we enter the break.
Wow. Calling me out.
What are friends for?
In good times, in bad times, I'll be on your side forever. That's what friends are for. All right, we've fought enough. I want a drink.
Before me is the ceremonial bag.
Yeah, the beverage break here is where I've tried to find a adult beverage of some kind that has a thematic connection to the piece we're discussing here today. Some of them have been really good. Some
They
of them
have.
not so much.
I think my
I
favorite.
mean, in terms of connecting with the theme.
I think the two winners so far are Redemption Rye and Yippee-Ki-Yay Whiskey from the Die Hard episode.
Die Hard and
I think-
Redemption Rye for the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, I think those two have been the ballpark, the hitting it out of the ballpark. All right, so here we go. Bad Elf Winter's Ale. And the the label features a crafty looking elf beckoning you forward with a mug of ale. There's a holly leaf and berries. And let's see, this is a product of Ridgeway Brewing, Oxfordshire. Is this a British beer?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
This is one of their seasonals. They've got a huge seasonal lineup. And the Elf series. Oh yeah, there's another one in there.
Two. Yes. Let's. No.
It's a different beer.
It's a different one. Santa's Butt. Winter Porter.
Now, Jeff, a butt is a beer barrel equal to 108 imperial gallons.
What?
That is what a butt is.
So I don't know if I mispronounced Oxford. It should be Oxfordshire then.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So what should I try? Santa's.
So, well, I thought we'd split it.
Yes.
We'd each do both.
Okay.
So the Elf series, I was about to say, there's a whole series of elf-themed beers, and the higher the alcohol content, the more chaotic evil the elf becomes. There's bad elf, very bad elf, like insanely bad elf, criminally bad elf.
Quite bad elf.
They just get worse and worse and worse, all the way up to like 11.2% ABV. I didn't get that one.
Wow.
And then the Santa's Butt is a porter that, this bad elf, by the way, is 4.5% ABV. The Santa's Butt is a seasonal porter that's 6% alcohol. So there's two. I thought I'd get 4 glasses and pour a little bit of each into them, and we'd
It's on.
have them. All right.
I'm going to pour this into the pint glasses. I feel like
Right.
that's yeah.
Then the intent. The smaller glasses are for the porter. The smaller, sort of tulip-shaped, bulb-shaped, I would say.
Here you go. I did a very poor
Gracias.
pour, giving it a bit of a thin head. I should have poured it more aggressively.
You also took most of it. I've got like a tenth of the bottle left.
Oh,
I'm joking.
I'm a selfish bastard.
Whoops.
We both poured poorly. See, you got.
No, I think it's just a thin head.
Yeah, it is kind of a
it's
thin
just
head.
a thin-headed beer.
Here we go. It's sort of
Cheers.
it's not a pale yellow.
Yeah,
it's
it is. Oh, a pale.
it's not as pale
It's
as
more golden.
yeah, exactly. It's not as pale as like an American lager, but it is
Right.
vaguely
It is a British pale ale.
vaguely urine colored.
A bitter? Is that what they call it?
Oh, interesting. It's quite light, and it is bitter.
A little.
It's a little bitter for
barely.
for an ale.
Actually, I'm not getting a
Really?
whole lot of bitter out of it. It's very barely bitter. It's bit-ish.
It's very light. It doesn't have a
Yeah.
lot of body. It's very
Right. Very kind of thin, just like
Easy.
the head is.
Yeah.
This would be a really easy one to drink very quickly.
yeah. You could pull a pint and drink this rapidly.
Yeah.
All right, well let's open the Santa's butt. All right, hand me your glass.
All right, so this is the Santa's Butt Winter Porter.
Equally thin head. You've been to Britain and you've pulled a pint the old-fashioned way, where it's not a you have to pump it.
No.
It's not. Oh, you haven't. Okay, so
haven't.
in Britain, when you order a pint, there's no pressure. It's not like in America where you pull the tap handle and it just flows. You pump it.
Huh.
The handles are mounted on or beneath the bar, and so you pump it into a glass, and it's not as carbonated, and it's also not as cold. And the first time it's sort of disorienting, but then you drink it and you're like, oh, this is. If I were coming in from a cold winter day, I'd much rather have a beer that isn't ice cold.
Yeah, you'd want it room temperature so it warms you a bit.
And
sure.
the IPA, the India Pale Ales in Britain, aren't even the same species of beer as they are the West Coast IPAs that you and I would know. They're much tamer and less hoppy.
Really?
But this is
Well, that's this Bad Elf Winter's Pale Ale. That kind of seems to support that, what you just said.
yeah, I would say so. All right, so let's try the Santa's Butt.
Anyway, Santa's Butt.
Santa's Butt. And by the way, I know it's the barrel, but the label is a picture of a crusty old Santa showing his rump. All right, here we go. It smells sweet. Ooh,
Also pretty thin.
for a porter, I agree.
Yeah,
Well, it's got a little bit of a little hint of cocoa, I would say, in there,
yeah.
and a little bit of tobacco.
I'm getting a little bit of coffee,
Yeah, it's what you'd expect from a porter.
but it's not a real full-bodied beer. It kind of disappears once you swallow it. Whereas
it's pretty-
I feel like most porters and stouts that I've had are just kind of like hang around.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It would be a very drinkable porter. These are both
Yeah.
very drinkable, like
Yeah.
almost like a session beer, like after work, go to the pub.
Sure.
All right, well, we're gonna enjoy our Bad Elf Ale, Winter's Ale, and our Santa's Butt Winter Porter from Ridgeway Brewing in Oxfordshire, United Kingdom. And we'll be back with Act 3.
Act 3 begins with the road back, where the hero is pursued by vengeful forces that he disturbed when he seized the sword. We've been terribly divergent on this episode,
I'm dauntless.
and oh no, you did not.
On the next episode of The Hero's Journey.
Actually, we could do that series. Anyway, so because I have selected Ralphie actually receiving the BB gun
Right.
as the boon, that the road back, the vengeful force, is him running outside to use his new BB gun.
right. And he does shoot
And actually shoot, or at least that's what he thinks he does. He shoots. The BB ricochets off the metal target that he's set up against the tree. It ricochets back and hits him in the. I guess it hits his glasses.
Strong. That's
So
a strong. I like it.
Could have shot his eye out had he not. Anyway, so
Yeah.
so now he's sitting there in the snow, and his glasses have fallen off. He can't see. He's groping around trying to find them, and they stink. steps on him, just crunch.
That crunching noise is such a great Foley.
And we've been, it's like somebody just twisted an entire celery stalk. And we've been cautioned, or the narrator has said throughout the film, that losing your glasses is like the big fear of a kid who wears glasses, because glasses are very expensive.
Yeah.
And so now, not only has he, shot his eye out, but now he's pulverized his glasses. And a second element of comedy throughout this film is the neighbors have a pack of bloodhounds that are a nuisance to Ralphie's father.
The Bumpus Hounds.
The Bumpus Hounds, yeah. And Ralphie has entered the house and apparently not completely closed the door as his mother takes him upstairs to wash his face. And Ralphie's coming up with this fake story about what happened, about an icicle falling off the garage and hitting him in the face.
Right.
And that's what's happened.
Right.
The Bumpus's hounds storm the kitchen and demolish the Christmas turkey.
Certainly a vengeful force.
Yes.
Yes.
This is, like Christmas is right. Ralphie has received his BB gun. The parents are content sitting on the couch, drinking a little wine, and Dad's reading the funny papers. Randy's asleep on the floor, cuddled in all of his toys. Like, things are good now.
Yeah.
And then this happens.
Yeah.
And another one of Darren McGavin's lines that I absolutely adore, and I say it all the time, is when he runs outside and screams at the neighbors. The way he's so incensed, but he's trying to maintain his calm. It cracks me up every time I see it.
Yeah.
So I think those I saw were vengeful forces of, no, we're gonna ruin Christmas because
super strong.
So anyway,
that's really strong.
From your story, what is the road back?
Well, the road back. So if seizing the sword is realizing that he's worthy and deciding to ask Santa for the BB gun, my road back starts with the family watching the parade, and Ralph is restless. He wants to get in there to ask Santa.
Yep.
So there he is, restless, watching the parade. Can we go in? Can we go in? And he finally goes into the department store, Higbee's, where he first saw the rifle. So it's like this coming full circle to ask Santa for the gun. But when he gets there, he's overwhelmed. He forgets. He changes his mind, and Santa becomes the vengeful force when he says, "You'll shoot your eye out," and then taps Ralphie on the head with his boot.
Yeah, pushes him down the slide.
So to me, that's the vengeful force.
Saying,
is
ho, ho,
ho, ho, ho. Totally, Santa becomes the vengeful force here.
Yeah, I can get on board
pushing
with
him down
that.
the slide.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
So that's what I had as the road back.
Okay.
Which leads us to resurrection. The hero is purified by death, either in a literal or symbolic way, and returns to the land of the living, a changed person. So I saw two moments here. The first one is Christmas morning, Ralphie receives a bunny suit from his aunt. And, of course, Mom insists that he go put it on, and Dad's like, come on, don't make him wear it. And to me, this moment is what demonstrates that he's no longer a child. You can wear a bunny suit when you're a kid, when you're a little kid, and it works. And if you're an older kid / almost a teenager, it doesn't work. And here Mom is trying to hold him back. Be a kid. Oh, it's so cute. You're so cute. I want you to stay cute. And Dad's like, come on. He doesn't have to wear it. To me, this is that clear indication he's no longer a child. This is the death of his childhood and his rebirth as a man-child or a teenager. The other moment of resurrection, Christmas is over and no gun.
Right.
Only the old man has hidden one last gift behind the desk.
Right.
And it's the BB gun.
Yep.
Christmas is resurrected.
Yeah.
Like Jesus at Easter, Ralphie's dream of owning that BB gun is resurrected.
Yeah.
And that is the moment where his dream dies and is brought back to life.
Yes. I absolutely agree with that. And I love that scene because the old man is standing there and he looks so proud and happy. And he is reliving the first time that he got a BB gun.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think. And he's counseling Ralphie. This is a mentor moment. Like, do you know how to load it? And be careful with the BB. They run all over. You know, he's mentoring
and you
him.
see him sort of miming,
But
putting
yeah,
it.
yeah. He's
Darren McGavin.
Yeah, so good.
There's another resurrection in there, which is Melinda Dillon as the mom, who we haven't really talked about. She's brilliant.
Yes.
In this movie.
Yes.
Straight up brilliant.
Yeah.
This is her seminal role. She's watching the old man watch Ralphie get a BB gun, and she falls in love with him again in that moment. If you watch that scene again and watch Melinda Dillon, she's like, that's why I married this guy.
Yeah.
He's so passionate. And that is the resurrection of their relationship. Because when that lamp breaks, there's a schism. There's a schism between them. And this is the moment where it's healed. Yeah. And let's just talk about that whole Christmas morning scene. The bowling ball, when she gives him the bowling ball. Thanks a lot.
Drops it right in his lap.
And Darren McGavin is playing the old man as brutally hungover.
He keeps rubbing his forehead.
Oh, he is just fucked up. And so having kids has altered my viewing of this movie. I always identified with Ralphie. Oh, I remember what Christmas was like. And this time watching the movie, I'm watching it as the dad of the son who gets the gift. And I'm watching and realizing, I'm way closer in age to Darren McGavin in that movie than I am to Ralphie by decades.
Now, yeah.
And I'm closer to his experience too, his frustration and, the stress of just being whatever. I've watched this with my kids yesterday, and I've watched it before with them, but we actually sat down on the couch and watched it, and I thought, wow, I'm the grumpy dad with the heart of gold. I've become that guy.
Let me ask you this. This movie is 35 years old. This is an old movie to your kids. To them, this is classic cinema. Like for real.
Yeah.
Did they like the movie?
They love it.
Your son is 9?
Yeah.
And
he's Ralphie's age.
And your daughter is 5? 4?
6.
She's 6 now?
She's 6, yeah.
What? Okay, so did they enjoy
the
movie?
They love this movie. They don't see it as old. They see Christmas and snow, and they want to go someplace where it snows. Yeah. But they think they do.
Right.
Anyway.
So for me, the resurrection happens when it turns out he hasn't shot his. It's a very weak. I had a real hard time with resurrection in this one. He has convinced his mother of his BS story that it was an icicle that did it, and he's not going to get his gun taken away.
Okay,
but it's weak.
Yeah, I get you.
That's pretty weak.
We all have those moments.
So I guess that brings us to the end. Return with the elixir, or the freedom to live. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. So that night, how about this for a moment of resurrection? So the Christmas turkey's been destroyed, so they go to the Chinese restaurant.
Oh, there you go.
That's a resurrection of
the turkey,
the Christmas meal.
Yeah.
But it's Christmas night, and mom and dad are sitting on the couch in the living room, and it's dark. The lights are out, just the lights on the Christmas tree are on, and fresh snow is falling outside. It's a really beautiful moment. And the old man is sitting there, and he calls his wife over, and they sit there together, and then this is the first time I've ever noticed it. He slowly reaches his hand up and rests it on her back. It's tentative. Did you catch this?
No, I'm going to watch it again because I don't...
He doesn't just reach up and put his arm around his wife. It's real slow and tentative, and then he touches her, and then she reaches around and puts her arm around him. It was kind of a moment almost okay, yeah, you broke my lamp, but things are going to be okay. I'm forgiving you. But anyway, fresh snow is falling outside, and they have this real quiet husband and wife moment. And then upstairs, Randy is asleep in his bed, and he's got his arms wrapped around his toy Zeppelin, and Ralphie is sleeping with his BB gun, which seems really dangerous. I hope it's not loaded because it's pointed right at
it's
Randy.
It's dangerous for Randy, yeah. I'll teach you to get to the dresser drawer first, you little...
And the narrator, Gene Shepard as the narrator, as adult Ralphie, is recounting this moment, and he's saying...
Next to me in the blackness lay my oiled blue steel beauty. The greatest Christmas gift I had ever received or would ever receive.
It's everything is right again.
I can't argue with that. two things that I just wanted to sort of say outside of the hero's journey analysis. And I hate being political with this, but this movie's only 35 years. It was 1983. And the only people in this movie that aren't white are the 4 Chinese men at the restaurant. And it's this horribly racist scene where they're singing Deck the Halls and they can't get their R's and L's right. And the whole scene is comedy based around that.
Yes.
It's unlike anything else in the movie. This movie, the humor isn't at other people's expense. It's the humor of human situations and what it's like to be a kid. This scene just sticks out like a sore thumb of all of a sudden. This is why Crazy Rich Asians is such a revolution, because now it's just Asian people on screen living their life, and yet it becomes this big conversation. Oh, finally there's a movie with Asians. Well, because 35 years ago, this is what they had to deal with in the 80s, after the Civil Rights Movement. I bring it up because it should continue to be called out, because even though it was the 1940s, that scene wasn't presented as, this was funny to people in the 1940s and it's sad now. It was presented as, hey, let's make fun of these people. In keeping with my comment about relating to this story as a dad more than a kid this time, when they finally get the boys to go upstairs and they're, running up the stairs to go to bed.
On Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I hope Santa doesn't pass the place up.
Yeah.
That moment where he turns to his wife and says, all right, let's set up Christmas. I've had that. Like, okay, finally they're asleep. No, it's 9 o'clock. We got to, I got to put all this stuff together. And then the second moment was that what you were just describing of the peace of it's over and they can share a glass of wine together and enjoy the tree. That relief. I never experienced relief. I was always sad that Christmas was over. And now as a grown up, I'm like, oh, thank God we can just sit here and enjoy our marriage. So from my point of view,
Nice.
Return with the Elixir was everything you described as resurrection. Ralphie almost shooting his eye out, the Bumpus Hounds eating the turkey. The family has been restored to order. That's it for this episode of The Hero's Journey. Join us next month for our first Listener's Choice selection.
Wow.
Our patrons have selected Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is the year that I'm 42, so it's appropriate that
Me
we
too.
do this book. There
Yeah,
you go.
that's true. We're both 42. And, Jeff, you've never read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I'm embarrassed that I've never read it. Every time
We're going to make this right.
This is part of my retconning the holes in my geek culture.
Yeah.
This is part of that, and I look
Yeah.
forward to being inside the bubble.
I think I read it in high school like all the rest of our friends. And I think this will be fun.
You want to know something funny? Everything I know about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I learned from the PC text adventure game.
Wow.
Because I played that game to completion when it came out on PC in the
Why?
early 80s. Because
You hadn't read the book. You had that's been your experience. Okay, so you
someone
need to
had
do this
it on
analysis.
floppy. I remember not understanding what the towel and the babblefish were about, and you had this whole thing you had to do.
But you finished the game?
I did.
You didn't play an hour and go, what is going on in this?
That was video game. That was the height of video gaming on your home PC at that point. It was Zork and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And you haven't played a video game since.
If you'd like to earn the right to vote on our next episode, go to patreon.com/heroesjourney and check out all the different tiers you can subscribe at. You can access exclusive audio content, video content, and the right to vote on our next episode.
The Hero's Journey is produced by Jeff Garvin and Dan Zarzana. Hey, that's us. With original music by Taylor Jordan. Thank you to Dean Effington for designing our logo. And thank you to Ridgeway Brewing of Oxfordshire, England,
Amen.
for Bad Elf Winter's Ale and Santa's Butt Porter. Santa's Butt.
Still funny. A Christmas Story is copyright 1983 MGM United Artists.
Please follow us on Twitter at Heroes Podcast. Like us on Facebook.com/Heroes Journey Podcast. And check out our hilarious and informative show notes at www.heroesjourneypodcast.com.
Until next time.
Ho, ho, ho!
No, Dan, you have to say the thing.
I'm saying the thing.
No, the other thing.
Why do you get to say ho, 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 and I don't?
Dan. say the thing or Santa will skip your house this year. Until next time,
Journey on.